Most people think eScouting is about maps, and it's not. It's about data. The map's just how we visualize it. Welcome to the eScouting Report, Episode 2. This is on finding and using the right data on your map. On this episode, you should learn where GIS data comes from, which data sets matter most for your eScouting situation, how to elevate data quality, and how to organize data into QGIS. Joe, go ahead and take it away.
Today we're not doing a bunch of analysis. We're mostly just trying to get data into the map. We'll worry about the analysis part of it next week. Really, we want you guys to get excited about it. So we're trying to take you from a map that looks like this, kind of plain, not a whole lot of information there. And we're going to teach you guys how to add roads and rivers and bodies of water, vegetation, elevation, access, if it's public or private, satellite imagery, anything you could ever think of. We're going to teach you guys how to map it. Yeah, the first thing you guys need to understand about maps and GIS data is that really we're going to be working with two specific kinds. There's raster data, and there's vector data, right? So I'm going to do my best to explain the difference between the two now. It is truly just, if you imagine this map right here as a picture, we're just drawing on a picture, right? So for example, our roads layer, you can see our roads here, right? What we do when we pull this data is the data says, hey, here's County Road 72. We're going to make this an actual layer, something selectable, right? So if I tried to select, this, I can't grab anything, you know what I mean? It just kind of exists, but there's nothing for me to grab. Versus when I turn, it becomes pink here. So now we have a physical vector data file in here, and these roads become selectable here. So now we can pull this road, and we can see all sorts of information about this road. A vector is just a physical path, or an actual, like, imagine taking a paintbrush to this and then adding some data to it. That's a vector. Or sorry, when you don't know what a raster is, a vector becomes harder to explain.
That's
But
where
it
the
truly
vector,
is.
I look at it from somebody who's just now learning. I look at it as the vector is with data connected. Like there's real data being connected to that.
There is data connected to, like, so for example,
Metadata, if you want me to be more specific,
there
even
is data.
metadata is
So
connected
there
to
is
a
data
raster.
versus like just like the map, right? So like this
Right.
map, I can't select this road because
Right.
the map is truly just a photo. But this vector is also just think of it as a vector uses coordinates to represent real world features. I think that's the way they like to describe it in the book.
That is the way it clicked in my brain between a raster and a shape. A shape is just exactly that. It's a shape on the map that's representing something that's actually there, but there's no metadata behind it explaining anything, or you can't place anything or analyze anything there. It's saying, hey, that exists there.
So that's vector data. Now, raster data is a little bit easier for me to understand being a data guy, but for someone who's not super into it, it might not make as much sense. So what a raster will do is it'll break down. So you'll see this outline, right? It'll take every pixel in this outline and it's going to assign it a value, similar to an Excel spreadsheet, right? So in A1 you have 0, maybe you have an A2 you have 1, and A3 you have 1, and A4 you have 0, and you can kind of make paths about, you could make shapes out of rasters. You could make elevation models out of rasters. It's where each pixel needs to have some sort of data.
The more
And so,
pixels that you can assign data to, the better analysis that you can do on your unit.
yeah. And so elevation data, right? So here's an elevation model where red is high, blue is low. This is relative. Yeah. So everything in this unit is between 1625 meters and 2944 meters. All right. And so each pixel, and you can see when I select this, each pixel has its own individual value. So for this pixel, the elevation on this pixel is 1829, right? So if we zoom out and we go to a different spot right here, this individual pixel, its value is 2866 meters. And so when you add all that stuff together, it gives you a nice elevation model, and you can do analysis off of that. But this is just right now, we're just talking about rasters. You can do rasters and all sorts of different things, right? So for example, here we have an open tree canopy with curl leaf, mountain mahogany, woodlands, and shrubs. They're a conifer tree, evergreen, open tree canopy. That's what we got in that box right there, right? This box has something else, and this box has something else. Each pixel has been assigned a certain value. This will come in handy next week when we start doing some real analysis. But just for now, just so you guys know, that's the big difference between the two data types we're going to be working with 90% of the time. Vector is a shape on a map. A raster is a pixel on a map with data attached to it, right? So keep that in mind.
All right, so let's move on here. I'm thinking we kind of just get down into like kind of where we grab the data and what's kind of important here. So let's just get into our core data set that like every eScout, we jump in and we find this first. So something like whether that's like getting it from Google or AI forums or any literature that we referenced earlier, it's just finding what type of habitat your species wants to live in. And then we're going to show you a few examples here.
Next step would be to go find these core data sets, right? So what are we saying are important for almost any hunt? So for elk in unit 201, northwestern Colorado, for example, we're going to say, hey, roads are extremely important. Water sources are extremely important. Vegetation is extremely important. And what we'll do every time we go find studies from like PhD, like Utah State University, finding fidelity of adult elk in northwestern Colorado. Or here's another one, March 2013, Mr. Scott, don't know his name, PhD, the smart guy, I'm sure, in
A lot
Washington
smarter than
State.
us.
And a brief review of scientific literature on elk roads and traffic, right? And so, like, we could find, again, he's referencing other studies that we could look at, but when they have a choice, early fall, late summer, they're going to be trying to get away from people as much as they can, especially during hunting season. They know the pressure's coming. They
Think
do
of
this every year.
I think a beautiful way to kind of surmise everything you were saying is the thing that's kind of italicized there. And it says the distribution for wintering elk in the southeastern Idaho, it concluded that elk distribution appeared to be influenced primarily by man's activities and secondarily by snow depths and vigor of browse. So essentially, it's food, how thick the snow is, and where people are at.
And some of it might not necessarily be applicable to your unit and your situation, right? So this guy's doing stuff probably in Washington or southeast Idaho, not too far from Colorado, but not Colorado. But how these animals move are going to probably be relatively similar wherever you go, right? And it says right here, elk concentrate on areas furthest from human activity. Example, roads. They bundle up where there's no roads, right? So we're going to keep that in mind. And it's not just this one study, guys. You'll find 100
Everywhere.
studies that say the same thing, right? And all those studies are saying it. Why? Because they're lying to you. Is it big pharma wants you to eat fucking antibiotic beef? No, because it's true. Elk don't want to be near people. That's the reality of it. So if I was
There's
an elk,
not
I wouldn't
this
want to be
big,
near you guys
that's
either.
the thing. Like, we're not coming up with, like, that's, I think, the most important thing about hunting buddies is we're not like the person coming up with any of the information again. We are finding it from smart people and digging into it and then just applying it to a map and highlighting it and telling you, hey, the odds of finding something here is way higher because of the proximity data that you pulled from this study and applied the same logic to Unit 201 in Colorado.
Among the variables that best predicted observed elk use was the distance to high and medium use roads. So greater than 4 vehicles per 12 hours and 2 to 4 vehicles per 12 hours, respectively. So, like, I've seen bighorn on the side of the road. So, for bighorn, we're not going to bring up a road map and be too concerned about it. For elk, though, that's something we think about, we factor in. And it's we think about it and factor in because we're reading studies like this, we're getting this information, we're retaining it, and then we apply it to our habitat models. Another thing we're going to look at is forums. If you guys have ever been on the internet asking about hunting, you're going to see rock slide, right? And so
Rock Slide, by the way, we love Rock Slide. We're big Rock
yeah,
Slide fans.
it's great. And some people are, some people are assholes on there, rightfully so, because people go on there, they don't contribute anything, but they want all the answers in the world. But a lot of times, if you're patient and you ask the right questions and you share, like if you get something, if you receive something, make sure you share things back. Like we received information. You see that picture? Yeah. So that picture is like we got information from Rock Slide about a spot to go, and we got a great bull off that. And guess what? We took all those pictures, the whole hunt, we documented it. And you guys can find that page on Rock Slide. It's a pretty good read. People seem to enjoy it. But on this, you can see, so we looked up unit 201. This was the first Rock Slide thing that pulled up. It talks about how hard it is to get a tag, how people are really excited. Um,
And
but
Joe, let me stop you real quick. The reason why we chose 2012 is this is a dream unit, right? So if somebody wants to find information and they see our video or they see this, they're hopefully going to find out some pretty good spots to just go and locate elk, because our system isn't there to find the biggest elks in the entire world. It's there to locate the animals and the ideal habitat for them. And like we want to basically increase the interactions for every single hunt for a hunter to be knowledgeable, to not either push them out of somewhere too if they know they're there, or after you locate them, you at least can put something up like a trail cam, or you can have a spot where you know they're going to be.
So here's Rock Slide, and it's great. We have a great form here, and you can see this guy had a deer tag in 2018. I was told by elk hunters. And if you guys have ever actually gone out and hunted and you've gone to a new unit, you talk with other hunters. I don't know how many people have actually done that, but you'll talk with people. You see them at the bar in town playing some pool, getting a burger, whatever. You're gonna ask them, how, you both are all being camo because you're out hunting all day, right? And you're like, oh, what you hunting for? Oh, you going elk? Oh, I got a deer tag. Oh, you seen any elk anywhere? They're gonna tell you. You know what I mean? Oh, I didn't see any elk, but I did see a deer over here. You guys, like, I don't have a deer tag here, but you guys do. So, like, might be interested. That stuff happens. I'm telling you. Drake and I did it. We met some great people in Idaho where we've hunted. We've gotten great tips here turkey hunting. People are, I think people are way more wary online to spread information than they are face to face in person. You talk to a person, they think you're a decent guy. They'll help you out most of the time. Anyways, so this guy talks about, hey, elk hunter said on Cold Spring Mountain, especially the east end where it's rocky and hard to get to, right? So like, don't think we're gonna have it on that map. It's like this one, Cold Spring Mountain. There she is, Cold Spring Mountain on the east side, right? So rocky and hard to get to. That's where this guy's saying there's a lot of elk. Might be interesting, might be nothing, could be very interesting. Um, Next thing, another interesting thing you can get data online. Here's elk migration data, right? So here's the whole state of Colorado. And this isn't the most precise. I'm sure some researchers get some pinpoint tags about every cow, every bull, their number, their name, what their mom's last name was, but this just shows a general region, and you can bring this
A
into your
shape.
maps too.
This is a shape file, probably, right?
Yeah, so I download it as a shapefile. You could also download it as a CSV or a GeoJSON or a KML. What KML is useful for like Google Maps. GeoJSON, these are more like true data files, right? And a shapefile is literally a picture. It'll look exactly like this. So when I can bring this in, right? So migration corridor, here it is. That's in our unit. Now I've removed the rest of Colorado because we don't care about it because we don't have a tag there. But for our tag, unit 102, there it is. There's our migration data. And look at that. Kind of lines up with Cold Spring Mountain. You know what I mean? Maybe not a bunch.
Exactly what they said
There.
online. So you can verify again, like anything we trust, but verify the information online.
A couple more important layers always is going to be your elevation data, right? So this model shows blue being lower and red being higher. This is always useful for almost every species. Certain species like to live at certain elevations, certain times of years. So keep that in mind. We're going to show you guys where to download that stuff. Another one, vegetation data, right? So here's vegetation models. This shows, like, basically, I think it's every 30 meters. It shows what the habitat is in that area. We select any pixel here, like this one, mixed evergreen deciduous shrubland. Okay, well, that might be useful for, maybe it's not crazy useful for elk. Maybe elk don't like shrubland. But look,
Here's the thing though, Joe, too. I think the
it's
important thing to
surrounded by
note
a
here
canopy.
is I think the important thing to note here is when you actually like use a formula to filter out this data, you can actually filter out exactly what they eat. So these studies actually will tell you what they either eat, what they bed in, certain type of plants they like, and then they actually provide the number on those studies too. So you can filter everything out to exactly like only what elk, or at least what we're interested in that area, and determine what elk like the most. Then that's what we only have on this map. So all of these colors would only show, they said the shrubland, but maybe it was
We'll say,
canopy, because we
you
know
know,
they like they like a big canopy to bed in, and then they go out
100%.
and graze on the edge of those.
Right. So let's say based on research we did or literature we read or AI or Google or forums,
Or
etc.
or boots on the ground stuff that we've have from experience of
Whatever.
being in the mountains.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Or your experience. Let's say you know that they like evergreen, they like uh pearl leaf mountain mahogany woodland, and this is their favorite habitat in the world. You could get to the point where you're analyzing, hey, I want to see an elevation of this inside a migration corridor here, far away from roads, but close to water. And you could even take it a step further where you could do all of those things. Plus, I want to see in the morning, I think they'll be on a south aspect trying to warm up with the sun in the morning. You could add that in and it would, you could narrow it down even more. Yeah, but yeah, for this area, you could have maybe you want to make sure it's not too okay, it's not too close to a road. Maybe you want it close to a body of water. Okay, that's not too far away. Let's check out streams.
Something with that too, at like a stream, like a lot of times too, those are more low points in those areas. So there's going to be vegetation and stuff like that for them to browse on as well. So like
Absolutely, it
there's
could be
there's
thicker vegetation,
opportunities just even when you know things like that.
right? And then we could turn on the vegetation layer. We could see, elevation, slope. Here's an aspect. Well, okay, what aspect is it? Is that a south aspect? Okay, they might be there in the morning. They might not, but it's a probability game. Maybe after you've done all that analysis, okay, now you want to look at like a true satellite image, and it's like, okay, do you think there could be elk in that area? Well, maybe, maybe not, right? But you can definitely see what Drake's saying. See how the vegetation gets real thick, right? See how it gets a real dark green the further away from that stream.
And
The
that's
further away from that
downhill
stream,
too.
it
You
gets it
see
gets
you see how
lighter,
that's
right?
downhill. So like that water is running downhill and that it's going to
Yep.
nothing.
Look at
So
that.
like
You see it right there, and how it's flowing. So these are all important layers to consider and things to think about. When we start doing the analysis piece next week, you'll understand we can weight these things. We can say, hey, proximity to road, make that very heavy. That's a very important factor. Proximity to water, depending on where you're at. See, up here in northern Montana, it's not as big of an issue. We have water everywhere. But you start going into Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, water becomes a lot more important because it's such an arid environment. Aspect and slope, elevation, another one, public access. Hey, can I physically go there legally? That's another important one to have, right? So like luckily for unit 201, 80% of it or something's public. So you're good to go. But that's not necessarily the case for all units. You can see where it's, hey, this is private. You can see the little, I'm sure this is, Bisbee Ranch right here and Dutton Ranch over here. You know what I mean? They have them, but a lot of it's public access. What we're calling a core data set, why we're calling it a core data set, and then, just to take you through all the applicable situations for each data set, right? So aspect or slope to build off the literature models, right? Migration corridors, just so you're kind of, you can take that telemetry data, that collar tracking data, and put it on the map. You can add roads, you can add streams, you can add bodies of water, and then you can
I
do
think
proximity
I think
analysis and
something that's going to
weighted
get
analysis on all this.
basically you see all of these layers as separate data sets and separate layers. When we combine everything, like Joe said, when we're calculating stuff through a formula, like because you're obviously going to put it in like we said for certain vegetation or certain aspect, where you combine basically everything and it shows like pretty binary of what's good versus what's bad. And then like you said with the weighted data, it'll give you like, okay, this is ideal, perfect, all the way down to like probably not worth your time.
And I don't like to. I'm not trying to sound too much like a robot, but all these pixels will eventually become zeros and ones. Zeros meaning low probability of elk. one meaning relatively higher probability of elk. That doesn't mean there's going to always be elk there. These are wild animals. There could be an elk in an area of zero. We try to broaden that those ones so they cover the spectrum, right? So we know we're covering everything that might have potential elk habitat. Again, these are wild animals in wild places. They don't necessarily have to follow any pattern. At least in our experience, they do. And we're just trying to put that pattern onto a map and identify that pattern so we can go after those animals more effectively. Because you might only have 4 days. You drew a perfect hunt, but you got a wedding at the same time. I don't know. Stuff, life happens, right? You might only have 6 or 7 days to really get after it on an elk hunt. Well, you got a million acres here. It's a once in a lifetime draw. What do you do? Right? You can't just comb it all. You got to kind of take a more systematic approach. And that's all we're trying to provide people here is like our approach. So everyone wants to know where to find the data. Honestly, what I would say is the easiest way is to get on Google or Copilot or ChatGPT. It's Colorado, like hunting units. Don't mind this. I was just kind of looking for Utah ones, but we decided on Colorado. So these don't look quite right. This one actually looks right. So you shouldn't see like the 6. It should kind of look just like that. So we'll copy that in. We add it here. It's going to be a rest server because that's what we asked for. Uh, Colorado hunting units, right? We'll edit this one. You see that's the same. Boom, I paste it in. We'll connect it there. And here you go. Here's where you'll find a bunch of not just hunting stuff. You'll find all sorts of, uh, you know, what would you call these? Administrative boundaries of some sort, right? The one we're worried about here is hunting, big game hunting, or elk. And we'll just do big game. I think it's going to come in handy, right? So we would add those. Bang, close it. Now look at that, guys. Every unit in the whole state. You know what I mean? There you go. And that's how we found our unit. So that's how you kind of find those layers and how you add them. I would just keep Googling to find these. We're going to give you, I'll tell you what, that's how you do it. But we'll take a list of our favorite ones. We'll put them in a list. We'll put them in the description of the video. And we'll keep a running list in our Discord. You guys join our Discord. We'll pin it at the top. And you guys can just join our Discord, grab the list, use whatever you need to. Drop in, say hi if you want. If not, that's fine too. But yeah, that's essentially how you find, just Google, use ChatGPT, use the AI stuff. That's how you guys are going to find the maps that you need.
Joe, do you want to go over any like common mistakes? Because like I think something important there too is like you have download everything as a common mistake. So show kind of just why like some of the stuff just won't work unless you do certain things like have it saved to your computer.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about downloading everything, I think when you see some of the size of some of these files, they get pretty big
Show the
and it can be
vegetation. Show the
right,
vegetation layer.
and it can be pretty intensive. So for example, this vegetation map, right? So this crazy one, awesome. But when you come to their website, you're going to notice like we're downloading a full extent. So let's go down to vegetation. So existing vegetation cover in the year 2024. Look at that. 9 gigs worth of data, right? And for some files, it's going to be okay, right? This raster tends to play along and it does okay. But if you have 9 gigabytes, if your computer's pulling vegetation from 9 gigabytes, and you're doing that for 3 or 4 other files, right? Because I could keep going. I could show you. Let's do like a USGS download here. Let's say you wanted to do, I don't know. Let's say you get real into it one day and you're trying to do for unit 201. We're going to speed this up so you guys don't have to see it. We need to do elevation, but we don't want to do that one. We're going to do LiDAR for that unit. Look at this. So here's like a LiDAR thing. You can see the extent. Look at how small that gets, guys. So how like the DEM files are like 500 megs. for a big
Instead of
unit.
8 gigs, instead of 8 gigs, or
Mhm,
nine
right.
gigs.
And so look how tiny these are. These are if you really want to dig into like, hey, I feel really confident that there's an elk somewhere in here, right? And so if we download, I'm just gonna click download on one of these. And this is 284 megabytes on its own. And this is just, like 4 pixels. You know what I mean? So imagine if you wanted to do a whole unit in this, it'd be gigs and gigs of data. So don't necessarily download everything. And then when you do download a big file, so if I bring in a very large, and I'll do it right now. So I'll add a DEM file, right? So if I bring in a very large DEM file, look how big this is. And look at our unit. Here's our unit. Do I need all that data? No, I don't. So learn how to merge, clip, and just focus on the unit and the data that you really need. And it'll speed up your processing time. And it'll just clean up it just makes everything easier.
If you check out episode 1, we actually show how to like clip and combine and merge those layers itself. And Joe, show that layer on your map right now, that dem file, that unit 201 dem file right there. No, the one that you already have on there.
This one.
See how he already just has it in there and he already changed the color and everything? It looked like it did earlier before he did anything to it. So like if you want to know how to do that, go watch episode 1. Make sure to like that video because it helps out the channel a ton. Okay, continue on.
It typically looks like that. So yeah, so that's common mistake. Sometimes you're going to have to download big files, but try to clip, mask, union, whatever you can do to get less layers, less files, less data. Everything will just run faster. Let's try to get the latest file you can. We do the latest complete file, like we don't do 2025 because the whole country hasn't been mapped quite yet. So we do 2024. It's probably pretty close. Sometimes what makes sense is to overlay like burn, like out here in the West, we have a lot of wildfires. So this vegetation cover is going to be pretty accurate, but maybe there was a burn last year. So just make sure you're bringing in those like forest fire things so you can say, okay, it says the vegetation's this, but I know there was a forest fire, so it's probably not accurate, right? Have that thought process in the back here.
I think another nice little point too here is just like not trusting just one data set.
Yeah, I agree with you, right? So it's what we're trying to do is identify a pattern based on multiple data sets, right? You don't look at one Excel spreadsheet and say, "Yep, that's God's gift to the earth." What we're doing is we're grabbing elevation models from other websites. We're grabbing vegetation from other websites. We're grabbing migration corridor from state websites, and we're grabbing roads from a federal site. We're grabbing water from a federal site. We're grabbing aspect and sloped are derived from the elevation models. So it's a combination of different data sets that we identify, analyze to create a pattern that hopefully produces areas with a higher likelihood of you seeing, right? Again, not guaranteed, but everything you can do to just increase your odds when you've spent 20 years getting preference points and you're spending a week or two out in the field. Maybe you're bringing your boy or you're bringing your buddy. Anything you can do to increase your odds of success is, you should, hopefully you're doing it, right? And if you're watching this video, you are. I can, I can tell. If you get out there, you get out into the field and you don't see what the map's saying, that's okay. You're going to have to adjust on the fly.
Hmm.
Hunting, people have been hunting for millions of years, hundreds of thousands of years, however long humans have been around. We've been hunting, and people have had to make judgment calls, and animals have gotten away. And just because you see something or something doesn't quite go right, how many times have you guys been hunting out there? And oh, I broke a stick, or oh, I think I made the wrong move. But that's how you like. It's all part of your story leading up to how you get that animal, right? So we were in the snow earlier that day. We were trouncing around. We were trying to find the right spot to go. We saw the spot on the map. and we're hiking through. We don't hear nothing. We don't see nothing. And one of our buddies, Andrew, says, "Ah, man, we're not seeing anything." And he had a pretty short hunt. He was only here for a day or two before he had to go back for a wedding. And he looked up on top of the side of a mountain. He said, "Let's go up to that knob, man. I'd just like to just go take a look at the lake and like view it as our way." We're
But
joking,
look,
goofing.
it was like the universe called him to that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
100%. And so just because, maybe you don't see something on the map that's quite right, or something's a little off, or you're just not seeing them, man, don't get discouraged. That's how, in my opinion, that's how the best hunts happen, right? So keep that in mind. If you don't see it, if you get out there and you're not seeing what you're expecting to see, make adjustments, think about it, make smart plays. But don't get discouraged. Keep a good attitude.
I think the key takeaway here, Joe, it kind of just it encapsulates everything that we went over. And e-scouting isn't about finding the magic layer. It's about stacking multiple data sets until like you recognize a pattern or a pattern emerges. So that's where you can see how messy our map may look. But if you combine everything and you see like, oh, all of this stuff looks good, and they're all like, if you look at our pattern right here, you can see that you definitely know that there's stacked layers that match over top of things. But like Joe said earlier in the video, ones and zeros make that much easier to see once everything's analyzed.
Uh, Next week, you guys will see. We'll start doing some analysis, but you can see the pink is collared elk data. The dark pink are roads. Where do you see a vast majority of that light pink? Here's a lot of water sources and not a whole lot of roads, right? So you're already seeing the pattern emerge. Now, are the
Like
biggest
show
bulls
them
going to be right
roads,
here?
show them the roads right now, almost just the roads.
Yeah,
So
those are
like,
just roads.
so then I'll put the data back on there to show where the migration, yeah, corridor
So
is
there's
at.
the migration corridor, right? Where do you see it? Well, not a whole lot of roads around here. Not a whole
Nothing
lot of
down
roads
there.
around here. Not a whole lot of roads down here. These are pretty far away. You can see the pattern already starting to emerge. Now we'll actually add some numbers and some math and some formulas behind that to really make those areas pop. And you're gonna see it. This whole map is gonna end up. You'll see an orange outline. 90% of it's gonna be black. You'll see little white speckles, little white spots. Those white spots are what we're gonna eventually call our habitat model, and that's where we think you're gonna have the highest probability in Unit 201 in Northwest Colorado of finding an elk. That doesn't mean it's going to be a 350-inch bull. Could be a spike. We can't help you there. We can only, we can only give you a high likelihood or a low likelihood, and we're just trying to make sure if you guys have a hunt coming up, maybe you spend a lot of preference points, or maybe it's your first time, you just want to be successful. Maybe you spend a lot of money. We just want to make sure people are successful when they go out there because we have been, and we don't think it's not that it's easy, but if you just take a good approach, I think you'll have a lot of success.
A good way to wrap this up is, if you want to follow us to learn more about these maps, go ahead and hit subscribe. Make sure you like the video. Comment what hunting unit that you would want to see, or what type of unit. At least a lot of this stuff is more out west for Western public hunts. But if you're from the Midwest, comment where you're from, or let us know kind of what type of hunting unit you'd like to see that's maybe not in the mountains, or if we can come up with something different, or how would we do so. Just let us know where you're at. Comment below. Hunting Buddies is also a service. So not only do we show you guys exactly how we're doing it, you actually can pay us, and we will provide you a map that shows you all of those black and white specks we showed you about, but they'll be labeled with glassing spots, bedding areas, feeding zones, morning glassing spots versus night glassing spots, depending on we get on a Zoom call and we talk about everything that you think is important as an outdoorsman, because we want to apply your data from at least what you think and apply it to everything else, along with the science that can back your thought. So it's going to be a hunt designed exactly for you, what you think is important. Joe, is there anything else that you want to touch on before we get off here? Also, follow us on Facebook. We're going to have all the links to everything. I think Facebook's probably going to be the spot where we can gain the most traction the quickest. So
Yeah.
follow the Hunting Budding page on Facebook, and follow any of the Westy Boy stuff on social media. Joe, anything else? Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, nothing for me. I think that pretty much covers it. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a good evening.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. Safe hunting.